Cola cans this summer. They had names of song titles. They had always on my mind. I said, "Did they pay you?" He said, "They sure did." But this guy, ladies and gentlemen, he's in the Songwriters Hall of Fame. That was recently. He also wrote Moody Blue, which is one of our favorite, really great songs. I love Moody Blue. But nothing tops, I'm sorry, Mark, Suspicious Minds is just a killer of a song. And I saw Mark, he comes in every year for this event and hangs out with us. And his wife, Kat, where's your wife here, Mark? Where is she? She's over there. I see her. Okay. She's a wonderful lady. Mark wrote a lot of great songs, and we can stand here all night talking about his songs. But Mark is a great person in addition to being a fantastic songwriter. And as I said, Suspicious Minds, 40 million. And that reminds me, Mark, I was doing a TV show once, and so that afternoon, Elvis was watching my TV show. It was a sort of a bandstand type show called Talent Party. And on my show, I said Elvis's biggest selling record was Don't Be Cruel, and what was the backside of Don't Be Cruel? Hound Dog. Hound Dog, yeah. So Elvis that night called me that afternoon and said, "GK, can you rent the park where they had rides and everything? It's Lisa's birthday, and we'll all go out to the park." I said, "Okay, Elvis." So we rented the power, and I'm at the park, and Elvis walks up to me and he said, "GK," he said, "you made a mistake on your TV show today." I said, "What do you mean, Elvis?" He said, "Well, you said that Hound Dog and Don't Be Cruel was my biggest selling record." I said, "Elvis would have sold 10 million. I've seen 10 gold records at Graceland." He said, "George," he said, "I should know." He said, "I got paid."
He says everything. You don't really have anything to say after that. He's great with that. But I came to Memphis in 1968. And Memphis was always a lot of fun, great town. And a lot of people have asked me through the years as far as what makes Memphis so great with, with musicians and great records and even directors coming out here. And to me, it's always been a free-spirited place. If you come here, you notice people play anything they want. They play past music. They play anything. And mostly they play a lot of great original music. But it's free. They can do what they want to do. It's almost like jazz or blues, I remember when I was a kid, I played classical violin. I was studying for years, 6 years. My original name is Francis Zambon. And let me tell you something. When your mother's a school teacher, your name is Francis, and you're carrying a violin into school and wearing high-top shoes because of your arches, sooner or later, you got to kick somebody's ass to leave you alone. That's the bottom line.
He plays 12 instruments. 12 instruments, very good. And when he was young, about 12 years old, he played lead violin in the Houston Symphony. This man is a genuine talent.
Thank you. When I used to ride up to my grandmother, I used to push on in the 50s, I used to push on the radio station, dial on the button, and it'd be early rock and roll or early blues. And every now and then you'd hear it, not all the time, but once in a while. And when I got back home, I asked my mom and dad, I said, "Is there any way you can buy me a guitar?" I said, "I can't do that on this violin." And so they did, and from that point on, I read music for years, and music is great at getting everybody together real fast, and then you throw up the music and go off the field. But I never knew how much I loved music until I started picking up instruments and just playing what was inside of me, like jazz or blues. And I remember that big time. That's when I knew how much I loved music. And a little story about, this is Elvis, but I had a couple of hit records around Houston, Texas. And there was a break in my career. I hadn't had a hit about a year. And my mother and dad, I invited them out to a nightclub to hear me play. And they came out, and the next day I said, "Well, what do you think? How'd you like it?" And they were real quiet. And I said, "Well, what's wrong? What's going on?" "Well, I was drinking all the time, this and that." And they said, "Why don't you think about doing something different? Why don't you think about maybe going back to school and choosing another career and maybe just have a long, prosperous life and a long, prosperous life?" So, I started thinking about that. all week long, I started thinking about a long prosperous life, maybe so, maybe they're right, maybe. And I was thinking about, and I love music, but I was thinking about that, and all of a sudden it came to me the way hit songs come to me. It came to me, since you don't know how long you're going to live. I'll never forget that. It came to me. I was about 17 years old. I said, 16, 17. I said, since you don't know how long you're going to live, I'd rather do 15 minutes of what I want to do. And from that point on, there was no decision. I stayed with music. Yeah. Anyway, I came to Memphis in 1968, and I met George, Flash, you know, and all these wonderful people up here, Jerry, Jimmy, and they were all great. Memphis was great, a lot of fun. So I started, really, I was in Chip's Moment, a friend of mine, producer that produced all these records, called me from Memphis. I was in Houston. Said, why don't you come up? He heard some of my material. He said, why don't you try to come up and write and further your artist career and write and produce. So when I came to Memphis, it was a strange thing, because when I used to work in the control rooms, working up my records, you tell the engineer what you want to do. Well, in Memphis, it was another thing, one step over that. It was like, where a lot of songwriters engineer their own records. They were engineers too, so they could shoot for that sound they were hearing. And I said, well, that's great. So I started getting into that, and I started kind of living, not only writing, but living and breathing in the studio. And so I started writing songs right and left in 1968. And by the way, Jerry, George and I did write 2 songs, but I want to tell you something. My first million seller was the backside of Angel of the Morning. Read what you sow. You know, you don't get paid for people on the backside. The people that have the hit, they make radio play money every time it's performed, and they make how many records have been sold. You get paid twice. Well, for me, if you're on the backside, you still make as much as the guy that had the hit. No radio play, but you make mechanical sold. So that was my first million seller. But anyway, during that time, I cut Suspicious Minds with Sector Records. They really believed it was a big hit. It didn't happen for me. So anyway, I was still writing in the studio and doing my thing, and Elvis was coming in. He had booked that studio for 2 weeks. And the whole time I was saying, Elvis is coming in. Yeah, Elvis is coming in. And George telling me and everybody. And at that time, to me, Elvis's career had cooled off as far as top 40 reigned. He had done movie soundtracks and things like that, and other people had taken it over, like Tom Jones. He was #1 with his television show and everything. And I said, you know, he was a new sex symbol as far as rock and roll. And I said, well, can Elvis take it away from Tom Jones? I said, yeah, I believe he can. And I started thinking about what kind of song does he need, and I knew in my mind, whatever it was, it needed to be a mature rock song. Because he had rock songs and fun songs and everything, but in the air, I can feel that sometimes. I felt like there was a song in the air for him, and so I kept trying to write songs. Anyway, it got to the last 3 days or 2 days, and I went upstairs, and there was Don Cruz, Chips' party, says, you got anything yet? I said, man, I have nothing yet. And he said, what about the old catalog? And when I went to 1968, I wrote songs through 1968, and I started writing a new contract in 69. So I wasn't thinking about the old catalog. I covered all the songs in 1969. I mean, before 1969 a little bit, but he says, what about the old catalog, 1968? And I said, well, wait a minute. And I started going down the songs, and about the time I hit Suspicious Minds, Don says, what about Suspicious Minds? I turned around in the chair, and man, that was a song I had been looking for the whole time. And the great thing about it, I already had it written. But the bottom line, it just hit me as a stone smash for him. If you wanted to sing it, you're never going to get any type of a hit unless somebody wants to sing it, because they feel it, they want to sing it, and that's who's going to get the hit. It never bothers me when somebody passes, because it's not going to be on the record. You're not going to feel that. So anyway, when I knew Suspicious Minds was that golden #1 smash, I felt like going to Elvis, and George had introduced me twice to him. I felt like going up to him and shaking him and said, this is a smash for you, but I'm sure he'd heard that from everybody in the world. But so all I did was tell George, I told Red West, I told everybody in the world around him, get him to listen to this. It's a great one for him. So it narrowed down to about one day, he was coming in, and Chip Simone was downstairs. Phil Jarvis was coming in with Elvis, and Chips was working on the records. And I said, play my version, because he worked with me on that record. He was a producer. Chip Simone on Suspicious Minds. And I said, get him to listen. And he was a little off of it, because he really believed it was a smash on me. When it didn't happen, he kind of got off a little bit, but I said, play it to Elvis, it's a smash. He said, you think so? I said, I know so, play it for him. And Chips was a talented person, and he heard that. He saw it in my eyes. So when Elvis came in, he played it for him, and the story I got, Elvis said, let's hear that again. And he played for him again. He made a tape copy for him. He took it home, Priscilla loved it, and it kept spiraling. All these things happen. You know, it was #1 in 27 countries, but that doesn't happen unless he wanted to sing it. And here's another little thing I got to tell you, it's a big deal. I mean, I would have been there in a second. But when I left a tape on the control board, and they had started recording, and Elvis was in there without the band. He was just singing his voice performance of Any Day Now. And there was Felton and there was Chips over here. Chips running the console. And I walked in the control room, and there was glass, and there was Elvis through there just singing to a track, trying to get his performance of Any Day Now. And he turned around and looked at me, and I looked at him, and at that point, I could tell that he was real uncomfortable. I met him twice, but he didn't really know me. And I felt, I cannot be here when he records my song. I cannot be here. It's going to ruin it. It's going to jeopardize it. So I said, but I got to be here. I'm usually there on my records. But for the first time, I said, wait a minute. These are the same guys, musicians that worked on that. All you got to do with musicians is play them what they did, and they go back to it immediately. And I said, the same producer, engineer that engineered my record. I said, hey, that's the same thing. I said, wait a minute, it's the same building. For the first time, I don't have to be there. So I wasn't there, and hopefully it came off. But I got to tell you one more thing. And I said, yep. I said, that's Elvis, and he's thinking about kind of Suspicious Minds. But you know, he was a great guy. The chemistry kept going. I mean, with Suspicious Minds, a huge hit. He did It's Only Love. I sent him that. Also, They Call Me New York. They had these songs. I sent him Always on My Mind. I sent him, 5 of them. I mean, you know, when he died, Felton Jarvis called me and said, you know, he was going to have record 7 new songs on the next album. I said, he'd done enough for me. I said, I gave him 5 songs and had 5 singles. I said, you can't get any more belief than that. Somebody believing in you. And he was great. I mean, he's a real star. I mean, as far as, you know, I had Moody Blue again. That's another record I had out myself from Mercury Records. And Felton Jarvis called me and said, Elvis loves Moody Blue. He wants to record it. And I was thinking, how did he hear it? He wasn't supposed to. They wasn't supposed to show that to anybody. And he could tell there was something in my voice. He said, Mark, he said, are you working on this for yourself, a record for yourself? And I said, actually, I am. He says, wait a minute. And he got back with Elvis, and then he called me back, and he says, Elvis says, put it out, Mark. If it's not a hit, we'll record it. And that's exactly what he did.
Let me ask Mark a question. Mark, on Moody Blue, on the song Moody Blue, you're thinking about somebody. Who are you thinking about when it's...
Oh, that's... I was living in New York, and my wife, when Monday comes, she's Tuesday. When Tuesday comes, she's Wednesday.
Yeah, he was thinking about Karen over there, and it's a great line of Moody Blue. When it's Monday, she's Tuesday. Yeah. You said you got to have him Karen. But also, Mark, before you hang too, David. Like I said, I was a fledgling songwriter, and I can't sing a note. I'll be honest with you, folks. All I can do is, Mark, so what you got, GK? I said, well, I got a title, I got a story, and a few lines. He said, okay. So we go to America and work all night long. So I said, Mark, Flash needs a hit record. He hadn't had one long time. He said, what do you think? I said, well, I don't know what we got. And he said, well, how about when it's Monday? He said, no, that's already been used. He said, how about Deborah Lewis? Said, what's the title, dude? Goodbye, Deborah Lewis. Hello, Mrs. Brown. So we wrote the song, and Flash cut it, and it was on the backside of one of Marilyn Rush's records, but it never made it because we wrote the B-side. But that was a thrill for me to say that I was on a song with Mark James. Ladies and gentlemen, he is a legend in the business, one of the greatest songwriters, not just in Memphis or Eat Your Heart Out Nashville or whoever else, but Mark James, been to Houston, been all over, and his songs are in great demand even today. And they've got great lyrics, and they don't sound like anybody else. He said, why not, Chip? He said, well, I just signed a guy named Ronnie Millsap, and I'm going to give it to him. And Ronnie recorded the song, and he got in the charts and did pretty doggone good. But Mark and I were pulling for Elvis to do. Love to use a natural thing. But anyway, Mark James, you wrote so many great songs and so many wonderful stories, Mark. When you went up to the Hall of Fame, two things. One thing I left out. Ladies and gentlemen, he always on my mind. Mark wrote those with a couple other good writers. But at the Grammy Award that night, I was glued to the screen. I was watching. And Johnny Christopher came up, thanked the audience. The guy, what's that guy who wrote something for Clock Stops? The third writer. Who? Who? Yeah, Wayne Carter's